I'm literally so tired of being understanding about things. No worries, no worries. Worries, literally worries. Oh, no big deal, big deal, big deal. Always being empathetic, always being understanding. It's so exhausting. And honestly, I don't want to do it anymore.
For Mamma Mia, I'm your host, Ashani Dante. Welcome to But Are You Happy? The podcast for people who can't remember what they had for lunch, but vividly recall the thing that they said at a party back in 2013.
And I'm Dr Anastasia Hronis, a clinical psychologist passionate about happiness and mental health. Now, do you ever feel like there's only so much empathy or compassion you can give before you just hit a wall?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's like, am I the asshole because I can't sit down and listen to someone with all their negativity?
You're not. You're not the asshole.
Thank God.
It's actually something very real called empathy fatigue. So today we're going to be talking about why constantly being the supportive one can leave you feeling mentally and emotionally drained, and how to set boundaries with people in your life when you feel like you need a break.
Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm so glad we're talking about empathy fatigue because, to be honest, I didn't know much about it. And when I started researching into it, I just had this moment of relief because I started to think I was becoming this cold-hearted bitch or something. Do you know what I mean? So, like, what?
Tell us how you really feel, Ashani.
What is she hiding underneath? It's so funny. But yeah, so like, what is empathy fatigue?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to pause answering that and go one step before and let's just talk about what empathy is for a minute before we kind of get into the fatigue conversation and how that shows up. Let's just talk about what empathy is, because similarly, I was doing some research and I love a definition. And in doing the research, I learned a lot actually around this topic of empathy, because we understand the word empathy, but what is it really? Yeah. When we're talking about empathy, we're talking about our ability to understand someone else's emotional experience and also share in the feeling of someone else's emotional experience. So it's kind of got these two features to it. There's that sort of rational understanding of someone's emotions and someone's pain. But there's also that emotional element of being able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and in some way feel what they're feeling.
It's really interesting when you say that, because I didn't know that. Like, I kind of understood the understanding piece when it comes to empathy, but to know that it's something you share as well, I was quite surprised by that, because I know for me, I can be such a sensitive person and a very deep empath. So when I'm holding space for someone, I feel it. And then my issue is I keep holding on to it. And I'm oh, isn't that a bad thing? You know?
Yeah, well, it's an exhausting thing.
It's exhausting, exactly.
Yeah. And it's interesting because these kind of different components of empathy, we've got the cognitive side of it, that rational understanding, but then we've also got that more affective side. So for listeners, affective with an A, meaning the emotional side. And it's interesting because different people have different experiences of empathy. Some people lean more towards that more cognitive empathy, where we have more of a rational understanding of other people's experiences, and other people lean more into the affective empathy, where they feel the feelings, they take on the feelings. If someone else is sad and they sit with them, they walk away and feel sad at the end of it as well, because they've absorbed that emotional experience that someone else has.
That makes a lot more sense, because I've definitely been in conversations where I'm noticing some people can feel me deeply if I'm sharing something, but then I can tell when someone's a little bit in their head about it. And again, it's no right or wrong, right? It's just people show empathy in different ways.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's important to understand, because if we are seeking empathy from someone, we might expect it in the way that we experience empathy, but they might deliver it to us in the way that actually shows up for them.
Yes. This is so funny as you're speaking, because it gets me thinking about how so often you see these things on social media in conversations where, my girlfriends are talking to me and they're like, oh, I just wanted my partner to just listen. They're going into the problem solving things. Is there some correlation there, around in terms of they're not getting the kind of empathy they're wanting?
Yeah. So what you're kind of speaking to, actually, this sort of like problem-solving bit.
Yeah.
This desire to help. This is where we look at the difference between empathy and compassion. So empathy is the sharing, whether that's a kind of cognitive sharing or whether that's an emotional sharing. Compassion is slightly different. Compassion, the word literally from Latin means to suffer together or to suffer with.
Wow.
Which is kind of confronting when you think about that, to suffer together.
Yeah. That sounds so different to what I thought it would mean.
Yes. But it's also like in the kind of modern day, the way we understand compassion is to understand someone's suffering and pain and have a desire to do something about that. So compassion comes with this added element of wanting to help change the experience for someone, problem solve with them, etc. So we could almost say like empathy is necessary for compassion to exist.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. So essentially, like, compassion has that action element. That's where the help's coming in.
A desire to help. So it doesn't necessarily mean we actually do something.
Right.
I might see videos online of people suffering overseas. I might not practically feel like I can do anything, but I may have a desire to wish that I could help that situation. That's compassion. Versus empathy, which is the kind of feeling of being pulled into that emotional experience and being kind of pulled down into it. So different parts of that experience are useful in different ways. It's actually said in the literature that affective empathy, where we feel other people's feelings and really take them on, that's not necessarily very helpful. A more cognitive empathy that can lead to compassion, that's actually more useful for us.
So I just wanted to circle back to something you were talking about before around the two different types of empathy. Does that show up differently for people who have different mental health diagnoses?
Yes. So we actually see, based on sort of brain imaging studies, that different kind of parts of the brain light up. So for people who are more prone towards narcissism or people who have a diagnosis of schizophrenia, for example, we see that they have lower levels of that affective empathy and higher levels of the more cognitive empathy. On the flip side, we see that for people who have conditions like autism, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, there might be kind of lower levels of the more cognitive empathy, but higher levels of the affective empathy.
That's really good to get an understanding of it, because it just allows us to, again, be empathetic and understanding with people who do have those diagnoses.
Yeah, and to recognize that there are just generally individual differences when it comes to the experiences of and the expression of empathy.
So what's happening in the brain and body when we are feeling things like compassion?
I love talking about what happens in the brain and body.
Neuroscience 101. Let's go.
Let's go. Yes. So compassion has an evolutionary function. For the survival of the species, it's important for us to have group cohesion. So if we can have compassion for another person, if we have a willingness to understand, experience, and want to help their suffering, this helps with group bonding and group cohesion. The other thing we know is that when we feel compassion, oxytocin is released. So oxytocin is a hormone, and it's kind of referred to as the hormone that helps us bond with other people. So if you think about giving someone a hug and you get that warm and fuzzy feeling inside, that's oxytocin working its magic, and it helps us feel connected to other people. It actually also calms our nervous system. So when oxytocin is released, we actually sort of feel calmer and more present with other people. So there's a lot of real positive benefits to it. So if you're out there listening, give someone you love a hug.
Oh, that's nice. You're already getting a takeaway. There you go.
The other thing I'll add to it as well is we know that oxytocin is activated, but also dopamine pathways, so those reward pathways. It is rewarding for the brain and the body for us to connect with people that we enjoy spending time with. So compassion is a key driver to actually help us connect and stay connected with other people.
So I know we've kind of covered a lot of ground around empathy and compassion and how it shows up.
Yes.
So what is empathy fatigue?
Yeah, empathy fatigue and compassion fatigue are two interesting terms, sometimes used interchangeably. In the research and literature, we tend to talk more about compassion fatigue. But if I talk about empathy fatigue for a minute, right? If we talk about empathy as that experience of feeling other people's feelings, that's going to get really tiring and exhausting after a while. The other thing is empathy doesn't necessarily come with that added element of the desire to help. So if we just feel empathy and we don't have that added element of compassion, we can feel really quite stuck and bogged down in those feelings. If I'm sitting with someone who's going through a process of grief and loss, for example, and I feel empathy for them, I feel some of their grief, I feel some of their sadness. If that's all that kind of happens internally for me, I'm going to feel really heavy after that interaction. So I think one of the things that can protect us from feeling empathy fatigue is that added element of compassion, that desire to help and to do something. Now, that's not to say, though, that we can't also experience compassion fatigue. And this is very well talked about in the literature. We know that certain people in certain professions can be more prone to compassion fatigue. So people working on the front lines, people who are doctors, people who are dealing with people's hardships and pain and difficulties day in, day out. Carers, people who are in any sort of caring role, can be very prone to developing compassion fatigue.
I know you touched on like doctors and carers get compassion fatigue. How do they actually get it in the work that they're in?
Yeah, it's by being repeatedly exposed to someone else's hardship or struggle. That's the main way that we can get compassion fatigue. But it can also be, for example, being in environments where maybe someone is physically or verbally threatened. Maybe there's an element of risk. If someone's working, for example, in a high security prison setting, for example, they may have that element of risk attached to their work, and they may feel like over time it's hard to hold compassion for the people that they're meant to be looking after and protecting when they're also receiving some level of risk or threat from those people as well. Wow. So being in some sort of dangerous environment can create a sense of compassion fatigue as well. So it's not just witnessing and being a part of other people's pain, but also feeling like there may be risk for yourself as well.
Wow. What about for people who aren't in helping professions? Like, can they get compassion fatigue?
The everyday person who's listening to their friend repeatedly tell them about the struggles that they're going through, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Anyone can get compassion fatigue. So there are people who are more at risk. So if you are in those helping professions, for example, but absolutely, an everyday person, a parent can get compassion fatigue from, caring for a child or caring for an elderly parent or caring for our friend who's going through a difficult time. Anyone can get compassion fatigue.
So what are the signs to look out for?
Yeah, so there's a few indicators of compassion fatigue that you might be able to notice in yourself if you've been supporting people who are going through tough times. You might find that you feel a little bit more irritable. You might find you feel quieter and want a little bit more of your own alone time away from other people. You might feel more detached or a bit of a kind of numbing feeling. So when someone then does share about what they're going through, it feels like it's hard to care. We feel kind of emotionally detached from hearing that experience. And even sometimes this kind of cognitive process of like, oh, not again. Like, oh, I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to hear about this right now. Like that sort of feeling and thought process is an indicator that you might be suffering from compassion fatigue.
It's so good that we're really unpacking this and actually getting to the root of what does this actually look like? Because I think, first of all, it's a topic we don't talk about, but also it just allows us to know we're not cold-hearted bitches, we're just, our capacity is low and it's around how do we come back into ourselves.
And I love that you use the word capacity because that's so important. We all have individual different levels of capacity. There's so many day-to-day things that influence the capacity that we have. When I talk about capacity, I'm thinking about like how full is the bucket, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Throughout the day, little bits drip out of the bucket if it's got a little hole and a leak in it, and eventually it will run empty. But things like Have I eaten enough? Have I slept enough? Have I had personal stresses in my life or in my day? Have I just been overstimulated by the world today? All these things impact how much emotional capacity we have for ourselves and for other people.
No more leaky buckets. Just got to seal them up now. That's my dad joke. I had to do one. Okay, Anastasia, how do we bounce back from empathy fatigue? Is it even possible?
It is possible. There is hope.
There is hope.
And I know we've talked about empathy fatigue and compassion fatigue. And while there's sort of slight differences in the definitions as we've talked about, I guess the remedy is the same for both, I would say.
Nice.
So we can sort of use empathy fatigue and compassion fatigue interchangeably when we're talking about what to do if you're feeling that burnout, that emotional burnout. There's a few things I want to kind of touch on here. A real important starting point is filling our own cup.
Yeah.
We need to find and figure out the ways that we replenish our own emotional system. When the bucket has had all the water dripped out of it, we need to figure out how do we kind of fill it back up again. We can't necessarily stop the leak, right? Because as we go through the day, our emotional resources, our emotional capacity will diminish. So it is like having a leaky bucket that we can't necessarily ever fix. But what we can do is fill that bucket and sort of realize that water will drip out of it throughout the day.
So the sticky tape won't work.
The sticky tape won't work. It might work temporarily, but eventually it'll get wet and fall off.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Very practical.
Yes. For anyone who's a visual learner out there. So we've got to find the ways to fill the bucket. We've got to find what helps us feel like our emotional resources are replenished. And that'll be different for every person. So if you don't know and you're listening at the moment, I would say go through a process of experimenting to find out what that is. It might be that you replenish through spending time with people. It might be that you get it by spending time alone. It might be that going for a walk is really restorative for you. It might be that it's listening to music, connecting with people, doing some mindfulness or meditation. It could be a whole range of different things, but it sometimes takes a little bit of experimenting to find out what works for us. I might take a stab in the dark, Ashani, and say journaling might be one for you.
It's like you know me really well. It's like you'd see inside my soul. Yes, journaling is definitely a go-to.
Drinking matcha.
Oh my gosh. How do you know me so well? Oh my gosh. For anyone that's just tuning in, I'm obsessed with matcha and journaling. There you go.
There you go. For me, it's definitely quiet time. If I know if I've had a hard day, if I've got to the end of the day, it's been a hard emotional day for whatever reason, whether that's a personally hard day or whether it's that work has been really challenging with the clients I've been working with, quiet time at the end of the day is really important for me. I need to be in my own space, in my own head, with no one around me, no one talking to me, no one asking me questions, no one requiring anything
I love that.
of me.
I love that. And it's just, I'm so glad we're getting insight into what you do, because I'm like, okay, well, you literally sit and listen to people all day, every day. So I'm glad you're telling us. Is there any other things that you do, or that's kind of, I mean, you sound like you've really got it nailed. Like you really know what to do. Yeah,
it's I know when I'm there. I know when I am feeling fatigued. People around me probably know it as well because I'm a little bit less pleasant to be around. But I can recognize it in myself. It is a bit of a sort of empty kind of feeling, like I've got nothing left to give kind of feeling. Definitely the quiet time. I really enjoy listening to music. And I really enjoy just sort of being in my own head and in my own space. I don't like noise. Like I don't like a TV to be on or sort of like sounds in the background unless it's like calming music. So that's sort of what works for me. But I will say we're talking about filling the cup, filling the bucket, right? On the flip side of that, the other thing that helps me day to day is a slightly different lens, which is when I am feeling fatigued. Look, we've all got resources we can sometimes pull on, right? Yeah. So I like to also just come back to my own value system, my own kind of moral compass, what's important to me. And I've never regretted caring or giving.
Mm.
The things I do regret are when maybe I haven't taken that step, when I wasn't kind of thoughtful enough towards someone, when I didn't send that text message to check in to see how someone was going, when I didn't kind of show the love, the kindness, the compassion. So I think sometimes regret can be a powerful tool to help us make decisions for ourselves, because even sometimes when I am feeling like there's not much left in that bucket, if I think to myself, you know what, you won't regret showing compassion in this moment. You might feel a little bit more tired at the end of the day, but you won't regret it. That helps me find what I need to find within myself.
Okay, well, I feel like you've already touched on about how I journal and I have my matcha. But for me, I find there is something so calming around just being in my own space. And I think, like being able to journal or just let out whatever I'm processing, because it can just be so much to hold, and it's just getting it out is just so nice. And for me, it's definitely listening to music that gets me in my body and just like moving my hips around, like just getting the energy flowing is like, that's usually my go-to.
Yes. And you know what I'm thinking as well, as you say that, we're talking about how to manage if we're feeling empathy fatigue or compassion fatigue from helping others. But really, by going through this process of restoring our own emotional capacity, we're really showing ourselves compassion by tuning to our own needs and recognizing where we're at and what's going to help us. That is self-compassion.
I really love that phrase. And it actually reminds me back on an episode we did earlier this year around how you were saying, we talk about, you put on your own oxygen mask first before the other person. And you're like, it's not first, it's equal. And I just wanted to bring that back in because it sounds like that's what this is about. It's around how do we make sure we're equal in the dynamics where we're holding space for other people.
Yes, we need to feel like we have capacity in order to help and care for others.
Yeah. So speaking of relationship dynamics and the space we're holding for someone else, how do we communicate clearly around what we need whilst also, we don't want to let the other person down, right?
Yeah. I think it's important to be transparent about where we're at. So if we are in our everyday life supporting someone or trying to be a good friend to someone who's going through a hard time, there are going to be days where we can't hold that space for them, or we can't hold it in the same way we did the previous day. We're human, we change. And so I think it's important to be transparent and communicate how much capacity we do have. So if a friend is starting up a conversation that we know we're just not going to be able to hold right now, being able to say to them, this sounds really important. It sounds like it really matters. And because it matters to you, it matters to me as well.
That's nice.
However, I've had a really long day. I don't have much left in the bucket. I want to be there to support you, but I don't know that I can in this moment. Can we revisit this conversation at a later point? Is there someone else you might be able to call and talk to right now if you feel like you really need support? And how about we chat tomorrow?
You're so good at wording these things.
I might have done this before.
What? But it's interesting just the way you say it too, because I know it can be so hard to even communicate that, right? Because that person you're holding space for, like they are in such a sensitive space and you don't want to hurt their feelings. But the reality is like you have to be honest, and if anything, like that's actually what they want deep down, even though the reaction, we just don't know how they're going to react, right?
Yes. And that's why I like starting with, this sounds really important.
Yeah.
It sounds important. If it's important to you, it's important to me as well. So I'm recognizing that I value this relationship and I care about the fact that you don't feel good right now. But that doesn't change the fact that I also don't have capacity. It can be both.
Yeah.
I can care and not have capacity in this moment.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when I'm communicating something like that to my friends, sometimes I'm also just, I take it that next step and I literally just say what I'm thinking, being like, look, I don't want to come across as insensitive, especially with friends where you think you know what they're going to say as well. So I think that kind of helps to disarm it all too. You've done everything on your end.
Yes.
We've reached that time in our episode where we answer a question or dilemma from one of you. Anastasia, this one comes from Amelia.
I've been going through a rough patch lately and I feel like I'm constantly venting to my friends. They've been supportive, but I'm starting to worry, am I being too negative? Like, is there a point where I just become emotionally exhausting to be around? I don't want to overshare or dump on people, but I also don't want to keep everything bottled up. Should I wait for my friends to ask how I'm doing, or is it okay to just bring it up when I need to? I guess I'm trying to find the line between being open and being too much.
This is so relatable. I'm so glad we got this dilemma.
The feeling of being too much. This is something I hear a lot.
Yeah.
I love, Amelia, that you are asking this question because it shows that you're being mindful about how you and your experiences might impact other people. So big tick for self-reflection right there. I want to say that I guess it sounds like you're looking for an answer as to how do I navigate this and what to do. And maybe there's no one size fits all here. I would say the best approach could be, again, to be transparent and to preface what you want to talk about with your friends. So this might sound something like having a conversation with your friends and saying, I'm going through this really stressful period at work right now. Can I talk to you about it? And just see what they say. And if you want them, if you know what you want, if you want them to listen, ask them, I just really need someone to hear me out and just hear my side of the story and just listen to me. I just feel like I need to be seen, I need to be heard. Or if you're looking for possible solutions to the problem, ask for that as well. I'm having this trouble at work right now and I'm not sure what to do about it. I'm not sure how to navigate the situation. I'm not sure if I should have a conversation with my boss or what I should do. If I tell you, can you try and help me out and let me know what you think? There's something really valuable about being transparent with someone. If I share with you, Ashani, that I'm going through a hard time, can I talk to you about it? And you say yes, you're agreeing to participate in this conversation. So it's not me then dumping on you without your consent or your permission because you've agreed to participate in it. If your friend can't be there for you, Amelia, hopefully they're able to say, oh, look, it sounds like a really tough time. I'm actually going through work stress at the moment myself, so I don't know that I can hear even more about work. I might not be the best person to help you right now. And that's okay too. But if we can have open, transparent conversations where we can preface what we're about to talk about with someone, I think everyone feels more comfortable and confident knowing the conversation they're about to go into.
I really like that that's the opening to a conversation like that, because I think so often we can overthink being like, oh, I'm going to come across as a negative Nancy if I say all this stuff, but you're asking straight up being like, oh, can we have this conversation? And then if that other person says yes, but they actually meant no, that's actually on them.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like this
Absolutely.
is where responsibility comes into a conversation as well.
Yes. And to maintain the reciprocity in the relationship, ensure that there are times where you are also opening space for your friends. When you're feeling like you have more capacity, more emotional capacity, be there for your friends. Is there anything you want to talk through? Is there anything I can help you with at the moment? Is there anything that's going on in your world that I don't know about that we can chat about? Open that space for them in return.
I love that.
And just one last thing I'll say on this is, Amelia, if you feel like you are really needing someone to talk to quite frequently and regularly, and like you are leaning on your friends a lot, it might be worth considering if some more professional support, like seeing a therapist, could be a good option for you. If you do want to talk through some of these challenging situations with someone and get some guidance around how to handle them without feeling like you're burdening your friends.
You got this, Amelia. Anastasia, can you tell us the main takeaways from today's episode?
Yes, I can. First of all, empathy allows us to understand and feel the emotional experiences of others, while compassion comes with an added desire to relieve someone's pain. Second, we can suffer from both empathy fatigue and compassion fatigue, particularly if we're in roles where we take on other people's hardships. And finally, reconnect with your own core values to help you be present for others while also filling your own cup.